The student arrived before sunrise, when the world still felt unfinished, when the sky was a dim, patient grey, and the streets held their breath. He had walked a long way to reach the small temple at the edge of the hills, and the distance still lived in his calves and shoulders. Dust clung to the hem of his robe. His mouth was dry. His mind, however, was not empty at all. It was full of questions he had rehearsed 100 times, full of arguments he planned to win, full of clever ways to describe what he thought he was seeking, full of the secret fear that he might be wasting his life, full of the loud, familiar voice that said, "If you don't understand this soon, you'll never be okay." A novice met him at the gate and guided him through a narrow courtyard where stones were set carefully in the earth, as if someone had arranged them to make the ground itself feel calmer. A few bamboo stalks leaned into each other, whispering. Somewhere, water moved over a small basin, not rushing, just continuing. The teacher was in a simple room with a low table, an old kettle, and 2 cups. Nothing shiny, nothing decorative. The teacher's robe was plain and clean, and his face looked as though it belonged to someone who had stopped hurrying years ago. The student bowed deeply. "Master," he said, "I've come for instruction." The teacher returned the bow. "Sit." The student sat, trying to look steady. He wanted to appear ready, capable, worthy. Even his stillness had effort in it. The teacher placed the kettle on a small brazier. A faint crackle rose from the coals. The teacher did not ask where the student came from. He did not ask his name. He did not ask what he had studied. He simply waited as the water warmed, as if that was the only thing worth doing. At first, the student's mind became impatient. He thought, "Shouldn't we begin? Shouldn't he test me? Shouldn't he ask something profound?" But the teacher moved slowly, unbothered by the student's silent urgency. When the kettle began to murmur, the teacher lifted it and poured hot water into one of the cups, then swirled it gently, then poured it out. The student watched, puzzled. Then the teacher warmed the second cup the same way. Every action was quiet, exact, and unforced. The student cleared his throat softly. "Master, I've studied many teachings," he began. "I've read the sutras, I've sat in meditation. I understand that the mind creates suffering through attachment and desire, but still..." The teacher lifted a hand slightly, not to stop him, but as if to slow the air itself. The student paused. The teacher placed the cups in front of them and began to pour tea. The tea made a small, soothing sound as it filled the cup, like rain on leaves. The steam rose. The scent was warm and earthy. The teacher poured until the tea reached the rim. Then he kept pouring. A thin line of tea slid over the edge and dripped down the side. Another drop followed, and another. A small puddle gathered on the table. The tea ran in slow, amber paths. At first, the student thought, surely he will stop in a moment. Surely this is some absent-minded mistake. But the teacher's hand remained steady, calm, almost tender. The student stared, torn between manners and disbelief. The tea continued to spill, quietly but insistently, like a lesson that refused to be ignored. Finally, the student could not hold it anymore. "Master," he said, voice tight, "the cup is full. It's overflowing. It can't hold any more." The teacher set down the kettle without haste. He looked at the student with eyes that were neither severe nor amused, just clear. "You are like this cup," the teacher said. The student blinked. "Full of your knowledge," the teacher continued, "full of your ideas, full of your opinions, full of your hunger to grasp something and call it truth. The student felt a flush rise in his chest. Part of him wanted to protest. He wanted to say, "But I came sincerely. I came humbly. I'm trying. I'm not arrogant. I'm only desperate." He wanted to defend himself with words, the very tool that had brought him here. But the room was very quiet. The steam from the cup drifted upward and vanished into the air as effortlessly as a thought disappearing when you stop feeding it. The teacher touched the rim of the cup lightly with 2 fingers, as if checking its warmth. "This cup," he said softly, "has no space, so even good tea becomes waste." The student looked at the spilled tea, and suddenly he saw himself in it. How much effort he had poured into trying to be someone, trying to arrive somewhere, trying to prove something, trying to get life to finally make sense. The teacher's voice was gentle, not scolding. "When you come to a teaching," he said, "you come carrying a full load. You carry your fear. You carry your hopes. You carry the story of who you are and who you must become. You carry your questions like bags tied to your wrists." The student swallowed. His throat felt tight in a way that was not only physical. The teacher continued, "If you want to taste what is being offered, you must set down what you're already holding." The student's mind tried to seize the instruction immediately. He wanted to turn it into a method. He thought, "Set down what I'm holding. Empty myself. Okay, I will empty myself. I will practice emptiness. I will become the kind of person who is empty." And he realized, in the same moment, that even this was more grasping. Even emptiness, if you try to clutch it, becomes another possession. He sat there, feeling foolish, and then, strangely, feeling lighter. The teacher poured fresh tea into the cup again, but this time he poured only enough to fill it properly. The cup held it easily, no spill, no rush. He slid the cup toward the student. The student lifted it carefully. The warmth seeped into his palms. He brought it close to his nose. The scent was simple and real, nothing like the abstract ideas he had carried for so long. He took a sip. It tasted like tea, not like enlightenment, not like a final answer, just tea. And yet there was something in that simplicity that made his shoulders drop. For the first time in a long while, he was not chasing the meaning of what he was experiencing. He was just experiencing it. The teacher watched him drink. "Do not make a religion of your thinking," the teacher said. "Thought is useful, but it is not the sky. It is only weather." The student stared into the cup. A thin wisp of steam rose and disappeared. "Master," the student said quietly, "how do I empty the cup?" The teacher didn't answer right away. He looked out the open doorway where the courtyard stones sat in their patient arrangement. Then he said, "Stop pouring." The student's mind reached for it again. Stop pouring. How? When? But the teacher's presence made the question feel less urgent. The teacher did not seem worried about the student's confusion, as if confusion too could simply be allowed to pass. The student took another sip and listened to the small sounds in the room. The faint crackle of coals, the subtle shifting of fabric as he breathed, the distant call of a bird outside. For a moment, just a small, gentle moment, his mind did not add anything. No commentary, no demand, no story. And in that open quiet, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. The possibility that he didn't need to become anything at all to rest. The teacher poured himself a cup and drank as though this too was enough. And the morning light, which had been waiting patiently outside, began to fill the courtyard. Later that same day, after the student had eaten a simple meal of rice and vegetables, after he had swept the path with the novices, after he had tried and failed not to think about whether he was doing it right, he found himself in a different part of the temple. It was a small hall with wooden beams darkened by age. A single bell hung from a frame near the center. The bell was not polished. Its surface bore the quiet marks of time. It looked like something that had done its work without needing praise. The student approached a monk who was arranging cushions on the floor. "I can't stop my thoughts," the student said. His voice was honest now, no longer trying to sound impressive. "Even when I sit in meditation, my mind runs. It argues. It worries. It replays the past and rehearses the future. I try to be still, but I'm full of noise." The monk glanced at him with calm eyes. "Come," he said. He led the student to sit near the bell. The hall smelled faintly of wood and incense that had long ago faded into the walls. Dust motes floated in a slice of light. The monk picked up a wooden striker. He didn't raise it dramatically. He didn't prepare as if for a ceremony. He simply lifted it with the natural ease of someone lifting a spoon. Then he struck the bell once. The sound rolled outward, deep, round, and living. Koong! It filled the hall, then flowed beyond it, as if the air itself had become a wide lake and the sound a slow wave crossing it. The student felt the vibration in his chest and stomach. It wasn't loud in an aggressive way. It was large. It was present. The student's thoughts, for a brief moment, stopped because the sound was too complete to talk over. The monk watched the student's face as he listened. The sound stretched, thinned, shimmered, and began to fade. The monk asked, "Where did it go?" The student frowned slightly. He listened, searching. There was no place the sound went, no direction it traveled like a bird flying away. It simply became quieter until it was no longer there. "I don't know," the student admitted. The monk nodded. "Good." The student blinked. "Good." But I didn't answer. The monk struck the bell again. "Gung." "Listen," he said. "Just listen." The student listened. At first his mind tried to label the sound. Bell, vibration, echo, fading. It tried to measure it, to compare it to other sounds, to turn it into knowledge. But the monk's stillness made that seem unnecessary. So the student let the sound be what it was without grabbing it. The sound hung in the air, then softened. When it finally vanished, the monk asked again, "Where did it go?" The student felt his mind opening, like fingers unclenching. "It didn't go anywhere," he said slowly. "It just ended." The monk smiled slightly, as if the student had simply noticed something obvious. "Does the bell chase its own sound?" the monk asked. "No," the student said. "Does the bell worry about when the sound will fade?" the monk asked. "No." "Does the bell rehearse yesterday's ringing and fear tomorrow's?" the monk asked. The student's lips parted, and a quiet laugh almost escaped him. "No." The monk set the striker down and sat cross-legged beside him. "Then why do you?" he asked. The student's chest tightened. He wanted to say, "Because I'm afraid. Because I'm responsible. Because I have a life to manage. Because if I don't think, everything will fall apart." But even as those reasons rose, the hall held them gently, as if it did not believe they were as solid as the student believed. The monk spoke again. "When you say, 'I want to stop my thoughts,' notice what you are doing." "I'm trying," the student whispered. "Yes," the monk said, "trying is already more noise." The student looked down at his hands. His fingers were curled slightly, as if holding something invisible. The monk pointed to the student's hands. "Open them." The student slowly opened his palms. "Good," said the monk. "Now, open your mind the same way." The student waited for instructions, a technique, a step-by-step method, but the monk only said, "Do not fight the sound of the mind. Do not cling to the sound of the mind. Let it come. Let it go." The student's face tightened. "But how do I do that? I don't know how not to cling." The monk reached for the striker again. He struck the bell once more, but this time more softly. Goong. The sound rose, gentler than before, like a distant horizon. The monk said, "Do you have to work to hear it?" The student shook his head. "Do you have to force your ears to listen?" the monk asked. "No." The monk nodded. "Hearing happens by itself." The student felt something inside him loosen, not because he understood, but because he was finally being allowed to not understand. As the sound faded, the monk continued speaking in an unhurried tone, like someone describing the sky. "Thoughts are like this," he said. "They arise, they vibrate, they fade. You cannot stop them by wrestling them. If you wrestle them, you give them your whole body. If you chase them, you give them your whole life." The student swallowed. The bell's echo was nearly gone. The monk said, "No mind does not mean no thoughts. It means no grabbing." The student stared at the bell, then at the empty space around it. "But the thoughts feel so personal," he said. "They feel like me." The monk looked at him with the same quiet kindness as the teacher had earlier. "When the bell rings," he said, "is the sound the bell?" The student hesitated. "It comes from the bell." "Yes," the monk said, "it comes from the bell. But the bell is not the sound." The student's eyes softened. The monk continued, "Thought comes from the mind, but the mind is not the thought. And what you are is even wider than mind." The student sat very still. Outside the hall, wind moved through trees. A branch tapped lightly against something, making a small, irregular rhythm. Far away, a bird called once, then went quiet. The student's mind tried to comment: wind, bird, hall, lesson. But the monk's presence was like a hand placed gently on the student's shoulder, guiding him back to direct experience without force. The monk struck the bell again. Gong. This time, the student listened as if the sound were not a thing to analyze, but a place to rest. As the echo faded, he noticed that his mind wanted to follow it, wanted to chase the last thread of sound, to hold it, to keep it from disappearing. And in seeing that impulse, he didn't have to obey it. He let the sound fade. The monk asked, "Where is the sound now?" The student exhaled. "Gone." The monk nodded. "And yet you are not harmed." The student's eyes stung a little, and he didn't know why. Perhaps because he had been living as if every fading thing was a threat. As if every passing moment needed to be captured and controlled. The monk said, "When a thought arises, you can do what you did with the bell." The student whispered, "Just hear it?" "Just hear it," the monk said. "And when it fades, do not run after the silence. Do not make the silence into another prize." The student's breathing slowed. His shoulders settled. He waited for the monk to add something, some grand conclusion. But the monk only sat with him, and the hall became filled with something simpler than teaching, shared quiet. After a long time, the monk stood and bowed slightly. Before leaving, he touched the bell with his fingertips, very lightly, as if greeting an old friend. The student remained seated. Thoughts still arose, of course. Little ones, big ones, memories, plans. But now each thought was a sound rather than a command. It would appear, vibrate, and fade. And the student, feeling the steady weight of his body on the cushion, felt something he had been searching for without knowing it. Not a perfect stillness, not a locked and silent mind, but a spaciousness, wide enough to let everything come and go, without needing to hold any of it. And in that spaciousness, sleep felt closer, like a door that had been there all along, quietly waiting to be opened. The next day, the student woke before the bell. He didn't know how he woke. There was no clear moment when sleep ended and waking began. It was more like surfacing, like a slow return to the simple fact of being here, in a body, in a room, on a bed that felt firm and plain. Outside, the temple was still dim. The air carried a cold sweetness. The stones in the courtyard looked darker with morning moisture, and the bamboo held tiny beads of water that caught the first hints of light. The student dressed quietly and stepped out. He told himself he would be different today. He told himself he would remember the teaching. He told himself he would not pour so much into his own cup. He told himself he would listen like he listened to the bell. And, almost immediately, his mind began making noise again, about whether he was doing it right. He walked along a path behind the kitchen where the ground was packed and smooth from years of footsteps. A few novices were already up, washing bowls, sweeping, moving like people who had learned to let tasks be tasks rather than emotional dramas. The student envied that ease. He felt like his own mind made everything heavier than it needed to be. He found the teacher outside near a stand of trees. The teacher was kneeling by a small patch of earth, tending to something simple, pulling a weed, pressing down soil, watering quietly. He wasn't doing it with any performance of being spiritual. He was just doing it. The student approached and bowed. "Master," he said, "my mind is restless again." The teacher didn't look up immediately. He finished what he was doing, slowly, thoroughly, then stood and brushed his hands together once, a small puff of dirt falling away, like a thought that had lost interest. "Yes," the teacher said, as if the student had just remarked on the weather. "That is the mind." The student hesitated. "I understand that thoughts arise and fade," he said, "but it still feels like my mind jumps everywhere. Like a monkey, it grabs things. It won't stay quiet." The teacher's eyes softened. "Come." They walked together beyond the main courtyard to a quieter place where the temple met the edge of forest. The path narrowed. The air smelled of leaves and damp wood. The ground had a gentle spring to it. The teacher stopped near a flat stone and sat down easily. The student sat across from him. Between them, the teacher placed a small jar, clay, plain, with a narrow opening. It looked like something used for storing rice or salt. The teacher turned it slowly so the student could see the mouth of it, just wide enough for a hand to slip in, but not wide enough for a fist to come out easily. From his sleeve, the teacher produced a few small nuts, dark, glossy, sweet-smelling. He dropped them into the jar one by one. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was tiny, but clear. The student stared, waiting for the lesson to arrive like a proclamation. Instead, the teacher only said, "Watch." They sat quietly for a while. The forest held its own small movements, a leaf twisting gently in wind, a distant bird calling once and then falling silent, the faint creak of bamboo. Time passed. Then, from a nearby branch, a monkey appeared. It moved cautiously at first, eyes alert, body ready to disappear in a blink. But it had seen people before, and it had learned that not every human meant danger. It came closer in short, quick movements. Pause, look, move, pause. The student's breath became shallower, not from fear, but from fascination. He had never been so close to a wild monkey. It looked both playful and sharp, like a small creature made of curiosity and appetite. The monkey's nose twitched. It sensed the nuts. It hopped down and approached the jar. Its fingers, long, nimble, almost too human, slid into the narrow opening. It reached around inside, searching. Then it found what it wanted. The student saw the monkey's hand close. The monkey pulled, but its fist was now full of nuts, and the fist couldn't pass through the narrow mouth. The monkey tugged harder. Its arms strained, its shoulders tensed. It pulled with a sudden burst of frantic energy, as if force could change the shape of reality. The jar scraped across the stone. The monkey's eyes flashed, and it began to tug again, harder, faster, more desperate. The student felt something strange. He was witnessing an exact picture of his own inner life, made visible. The monkey could have been free in a second. All it had to do was open its hand. But it wouldn't. It clung to the nuts as if letting go meant losing everything. The teacher's voice came softly, almost like a breeze through leaves. "Do you see?" The student swallowed. "Yes." "What do you see?" the teacher asked. The student wanted to say, "I see greed. I see stupidity. I see an animal trapped by desire." But as he watched the monkey struggle, he felt the sharp edge of judgment soften into recognition. "I see clinging," the student said quietly. The teacher nodded. The monkey tugged again. Its breath was quick. It looked at the humans as if they were somehow responsible for its trap. Then it looked at the jar as if it were an enemy. Then it tugged again, angry at the world for being narrow. The teacher asked, "Why is it trapped?" "Because it won't let go," the student whispered. The teacher's eyes remained kind. "Yes." The monkey's struggle went on, and the student noticed something. The monkey was not trapped by the jar. It was trapped by its closed hand. The teacher said, "This is how the mind suffers." The student watched the monkey and felt his own chest tighten. He recognized the way he clung to thoughts, how he held on to worries, replayed conversations, gripped old hurts, hoarded future plans, and then wondered why he felt stuck. The teacher said, "Your mind grabs a thought, then it tries to pull life through a narrow opening, through a narrow idea of how things should be." The monkey yanked again. It couldn't understand the simple solution because it was too busy trying to win. The student's voice was rough. "But the nuts are sweet," he said, almost defensively. The teacher smiled a little. "Yes, many nuts are sweet." He leaned forward slightly and opened his hand, palm up, empty. His fingers were relaxed, as if they had forgotten what it meant to grasp. "Look," the teacher said gently. "This hand is free." The student stared at the open palm. Something in him quieted, not because he had learned a new concept, but because he had seen a new posture toward life. The teacher continued, "We think we must hold things tightly to be safe. We think we must grip our plans, our identity, our story, our anger, our righteousness. We think, if I let go, I will lose myself. The student's throat tightened again, because he realized that was exactly what he believed. The teacher said, "But notice, it is the clinging that makes the trap." The monkey tugged so hard the jar tipped. For a moment, it looked like it might break. The monkey panicked, then tugged again. The teacher's voice was steady. "When you meditate, you may think your problem is that thoughts arise, but that is not the problem." The student looked up. "The problem," the teacher said, "is that you grab them and call them mine." The student stared back at the monkey. He could almost feel the nuts in his own fist, his own sweet, familiar patterns of worry and self-importance. After a while, the monkey suddenly paused. Its eyes darted. It seemed to sense something. The struggle was endless. The jar would not widen. Reality would not negotiate. For a brief moment, the monkey's body became still. Then, with surprising simplicity, it opened its hand. The nuts dropped back into the jar with soft taps. The monkey slid its empty hand out easily. Free. In the same moment, the monkey leapt away fast and light, as if nothing had happened. As if the whole drama had been a passing storm. The student exhaled, as though he had been holding his breath the entire time. The teacher nodded toward the empty space where the monkey had been. "That," he said, "is it." The student's mind tried to turn it into a rule. When I cling, I must open my hand. When I worry, I must release. When I feel trapped, I must let go. But the teacher looked as if he could hear that tightening begin again. So the teacher said something quieter, something even simpler. "Don't make letting go into another thing to hold." The student blinked. The teacher said, "Sometimes letting go happens the moment you stop trying to get something from the thought." The student's face softened. They sat together for a while, listening to wind and birds and the distant sound of temple life beginning. The student noticed thoughts appearing, like small animals peeking out from bushes. A thought about breakfast, a thought about yesterday, a thought about whether he was learning, and gently he practiced opening his hand, not pushing the thoughts away, not chasing them, just not closing around them. He didn't do it perfectly, but even imperfect opening felt like relief. After some time, the teacher stood. "Walk back slowly," he said. The student nodded. As they returned, the student felt the path under his feet more clearly than before. The texture of earth, the slight give of moss, the cool air touching his cheeks. When a thought arose, it was just a thought. When it passed, it passed. And the student realized the mind could be like a forest path. Many creatures crossing, many sounds, many movements, yet the path itself remained. That evening, the student felt a new kind of tiredness. Not the exhausted tiredness of struggling against himself, but the honest tiredness of living a day with attention. He ate in silence with the others. He washed his bowl. He watched the way the novices moved, unhurried, simple, clean in their actions. Later, as the sun fell and the sky deepened into a soft, ink blue, he found himself walking along the far edge of the temple grounds where a simple wooden gate opened toward the road. He saw an old man sitting near the gate, staring at the ground as if searching for something invisible. The old man's face was lined, his hair silver and thin. His hands moved restlessly, patting his robe, patting his knees, as if feeling for a missing object. The student paused at a respectful distance. The old man looked up suddenly and said, "Have you seen it?" The student blinked. "Seen? What?" "My ox," the old man said urgently. "I lost my ox." The student didn't know what to say. The temple grounds were quiet. He hadn't seen any ox wandering through courtyards or kitchens. "I haven't," the student said. The old man groaned and pushed himself to his feet. "Then I must keep looking," he said, and he shuffled down the path. The student watched him go, puzzled. Later, the student saw the teacher near the same gate, looking out toward the dimming road. "Master," the student said, "an old man came here looking for his ox. He seemed frantic." The teacher nodded as if he already knew. "Yes." "Did he lose it?" the student asked. The teacher's eyes flicked toward the courtyard, where a shadow moved slowly. "Look," the teacher said. The student followed his gaze, and there, inside the temple yard, was an ox. It stood calmly near a patch of grass, chewing slowly, completely unbothered by anyone's concern. Its sides rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Its tail flicked now and then at invisible flies. The student stared, stunned. "That's his ox," he whispered. The teacher nodded. The student felt a strange mixture of amusement and sadness. "But the ox is right here," he said. "Yes," the teacher said. The student frowned. "Then why is he searching everywhere?" The teacher turned slightly and began walking, and the student followed him along the edge of the courtyard. "Once," the teacher said, "a man lost his ox." The student listened as the teacher began telling the story, and the night seemed to lean closer, as if it also wanted to hear. "The man searched the fields," the teacher said. "He searched the riverbanks. He searched the roads between villages. He asked strangers, and he ran until his lungs burned. He looked everywhere and could not find what he was sure he had lost. They passed a small lantern hanging from a beam. Its light was soft and warm. By dusk," the teacher continued, "the man returned home exhausted. He sat by his gate, head in his hands. He believed he had failed. He believed something precious had gone from his life." They stopped near the gate. The teacher said, and then he heard the sound of slow breathing behind him. The student's eyes widened slightly. He turned, the teacher said, and there was his ox, standing in the yard, chewing grass as if it had never left. The student exhaled a quiet laugh, but it turned into a softer feeling. The story felt too familiar. The teacher looked at the student. "What do you think the ox is?" he asked. The student hesitated. The answer felt obvious, and yet he didn't want to turn it into a cliché. "Peace," the student said. "Stillness, the quiet I keep chasing." The teacher nodded. "Yes." The student looked at the real ox again. It chewed, it blinked slowly, utterly present. The teacher said, "Many people run like this." The student's mind began to protest. "But I'm not like that. I came to a temple. I'm practicing." And yet he knew. He ran inside his own head constantly. The teacher said, "They run through books. They run through opinions. They run through success, through relationships, through spiritual achievements. They say, if I just reach the next thing, I'll be okay." The student felt his chest tighten because he could name the next thing he always chased. Some idea of being done, of being fixed, of being enlightened, of being beyond fear. The teacher continued, "But the quiet they seek is not far away. It is not hidden behind a mountain. It is not buried at the end of effort." The student asked, "Then why can't we find it?" The teacher looked at the ox and then at the student. "Because you run past it," he said simply. The student swallowed. "How do I stop running?" The teacher's answer was not dramatic. Notice the running, he said. Notice the moment you leave the yard. The student frowned. The yard? The teacher smiled slightly. This, he said, gesturing to the space around them. This moment, your breath, your feet on the earth. The simple fact that you are here. The student felt something loosen in him. He felt his own body more clearly. The cool air in his nostrils, the weight of his arms, the warmth in his chest. The teacher said, "The man only found his ox when he stopped long enough to hear the breathing that was already near him." The student's eyes softened. They stood together in silence. The ox flicked its tail again and kept chewing. The student realized the ox didn't care if it was found. It didn't care about the story. It simply existed. And perhaps peace was like that too, unconcerned with being achieved. The teacher began walking again, slowly, along the edge of the courtyard. "When you notice you're searching," he said, "don't punish yourself. Don't call yourself foolish. Just come back." The student whispered, "Come back to what?" The teacher said, "Come back to the gate. Come back to the yard. Come back to the simple." The student followed, his footsteps quieter now. He noticed how the lantern light made the stones look smooth, almost like water frozen into shape. He noticed the faint scent of rice from the kitchen. He noticed the calm rhythm of his own breathing. In that noticing, the running slowed by itself. And when he lay down later, he felt something new. He didn't need the day to resolve into a perfect understanding. He could simply let it end. Sleep came like the ox's chewing, steady, unforced, ordinary. On the third night, the sky was clear and cold, and the moon looked like it had been washed clean. The student found himself drawn toward the pond at the far side of the temple grounds. It was a small pond, still and dark, bordered by stones and reeds. The surface reflected the sky so perfectly that it felt like standing at the edge of another world. The teacher was already there, sitting near the water, as if he had been waiting a long time. The student bowed and sat down beside him. They did not speak at first. The student listened to the quiet, the faint movement of reeds, the occasional tiny plop of something in the water, the far-off sound of wind passing through trees. Then the student said softly, "My thoughts still move." The teacher nodded. The student stared at the pond. The moon's reflection shimmered slightly, because even when water is still, it is never perfectly still. There is always something: wind, insects, the subtle breath of the earth. "It feels like my mind is always rippling," the student continued. "Even when I'm calm, there's movement." The teacher's gaze remained on the water. "Do you see the moon?" he asked. The student looked up at the sky and then down at the pond. "Yes," the teacher asked. "Is the moon shaking?" The student frowned. The reflection trembled gently on the surface, but the moon in the sky was steady, unchanging, bright. "No," the student said. "Only the water shakes." The teacher nodded. "Good." The student watched the reflection again. It was the same moon, yet it appeared broken into dancing pieces when the water moved. The teacher said, "This is the mistake people make." The student waited. "They see the ripples," the teacher said, "and they think the moon is broken." The student's throat tightened. He felt like he was being spoken to directly, as if the teacher could see every time the student panicked, because his mind wasn't perfectly silent. The teacher continued, "Thoughts are ripples, emotions are ripples, memories are ripples, plans are ripples. The mind's surface moves because life moves. The student whispered, "So what do I do?" The teacher's voice was like the pond itself, deep, steady. "Nothing harsh," he said. "Nothing violent." He pointed lightly at the reflection. "Can you smooth the water with your hands?" The student imagined trying. The more you slap water, the more it splashes. The more you stir, the more it moves. "No," the student said. The teacher nodded. "Exactly. Many people try to calm the mind by hitting it." The student's eyes widened slightly. He knew that feeling, the inner scolding, the frustration, the spiritual ambition that became another form of tension. The teacher said, "They say, stop thinking, be quiet, be pure." And the mind becomes even more agitated, because now there is a second mind, an angry mind, trying to control the first. The student exhaled, long and slow. The teacher said, "Instead, sit like the pond." The student listened. "Let the ripples come," the teacher continued. "Let them go. They do not harm the moon." The student stared at the reflection again. A faint breeze moved across the water and the moon broke into shimmering fragments. Then the breeze passed and the moon became whole again. The teacher said, "No mind is not a blankness. It is not a trance. It is not a dead silence." The student whispered, "Then what is it?" The teacher's smile was small, like a soft curve in the darkness. "It is the mind that does not cling," he said. "The mind that does not argue with what appears." The student's chest loosened. The teacher continued, "When a thought appears, you don't have to build a house for it. You don't have to invite it to stay. You don't have to feed it all night." The student almost laughed because he knew exactly how many thoughts he had fed like pets, how many he had raised into monsters by giving them attention. The teacher said, "You can simply notice it, like noticing the wind." They sat quietly for a while. The student noticed a thought arise. "I want to do this right." He noticed how the thought pulled at him like a hook. Then he remembered the open hand. He let it be. Another thought arose. What if I never learn? He noticed the fear in it. Soft, childlike, wanting reassurance. He let it be too. The pond continued reflecting the moon, whether the student was calm or anxious. The moon continued shining, whether the water was smooth or rippling. The teacher spoke again, slower now, as if each word were meant to fall gently into the student's body. "Do not chase the moon," he said. "Do not try to grab the reflection." The student whispered, "I think I've been grabbing my whole life." The teacher nodded. "Most people do." The student looked down at his hands resting on his knees. He realized that even now, his fingers curled slightly, as if holding on to something invisible. He slowly relaxed them. His palms opened. The teacher said, "You don't have to push thoughts away." The student listened. "And you don't have to follow them," the teacher said. "Let them be like fish beneath the surface. They come, they go. The pond does not run after them." The student breathed in, cool air filling his lungs. Then he breathed out. On the exhale, the world felt a little wider. The teacher said, "When you truly see this, you stop being frightened by movement." The student whispered, "I've been afraid of my own mind." "Yes," the teacher said gently, "because you believed every ripple was you." The student's eyes stung again, but he didn't wipe them. He let the feeling be present without making it into a story. The teacher continued, "You are not every thought. You are the space that can notice thought." The student stared at the pond, and for a moment, that felt undeniably true. The teacher said, And even the noticing is not something you must force. It is already here, like the moon already in the sky. The student sat in silence, feeling the cold night air on his cheeks, listening to the subtle sounds of reeds and distant trees. He noticed that he was not struggling. There were thoughts, yes, small ripples, but there was no war. The teacher's voice was softer now, almost like speaking to someone who was already drifting towards sleep. "If you want to rest," he said, "stop demanding that the water be perfect." The student's breathing slowed further. "Let the pond be a pond," the teacher said. "Let the mind be a mind." The student felt something inside him settle, not into a perfect stillness, but into acceptance. The moon shimmered on the water. A breeze came and went. The reflection broke and reformed. And through it all, the moon never moved. The student's eyelids grew heavy. His thoughts became quieter not because he crushed them, but because he stopped chasing them. And as he sat beside the pond, with the teacher nearby, he realized something simple and profound. He didn't have to reach no mind. He only had to stop interrupting what was already calm beneath the ripples. He took one slow breath in, one slow breath out, and the night, patient and kind, seemed to carry him gently towards sleep.